First off, what is the Sender 5? At its heart, it is a muff-based pedal. So there is a full custom big muff that I modified and created over many iterations. And what you've got is you've got a pre-boost. So up here, that is the pre-boost. It's currently activated. So when it's on, that's the pre-boost. There also is a post-boost that's activated by selecting the left foot switch. So that's what's going on there. You've also got all these controls, which is really for the main muff distortion, which is when you turn on this foot switch. And you've got different clipping options. You've got different ways you can dial this in. And yeah, so let's just jump right in. So the reason I designed the Sender 5 this way was in order to get a full gain stage stacked sound in one pedal. So normally if I had a distortion pedal, maybe you want to boost it with an overdrive and then apply some post-processing EQ. So the clean boost on the left foot switch does have some EQ to it. There are internal trim pots. I don't super recommend people mess with them. But originally, if you dime them, it has a slight HM2 character to it. So you have more bass and more upper mids around the 1.1K range or so. But right now, the way I've been shipping them, it's a little more subtle. It's more of a bass boost. So let me just show you my favorite sound and how I got there. So So if you start with everything at noon, let's do that. Not all of my pedals really are made to sound that great doing that, but let's give it a go. So we're still on the distortion. There also is a gate control. We'll get into that later, but we've got kind of a bog standard muff style sound. Notice the clipping switch. This is really important. If it's in the middle position, it's going to jump your volume up super high. So let's go through that real quick. And the leftmost clip is kind of an interesting hybrid clip. Which I like using for more vintage stuff. Now, notice that right now, when I've got everything at noon, the boost is off. So I'm going to click on the boost and start manipulating that and changing the gain, because on the Sender V3 or the Sender, it says 2-knob Sender with the clipping switch. This was my least favorite setting on it. It just was too muffly, too woolly. Now we've got a tone controlled, we can fix that. And you've got the boost, which brings in it's kind of a mid-focus boost. And so you've also got the hot switch that does affect the main distortion, and it's kind of two different versions of all the clippings. So between the two, you have 6 options. Gain and volume are kind of self-explanatory, but let's turn the tone down and see what we think of that. So that's cool. I'm going to turn the volume down just slightly because I'm about to go to middle position again. So middle position is really raw and open. There's no clipping diodes whatsoever, and that's why it's so loud. This harkens back to the original two knob sender that had no extra toggle switch. This is kind of a favorite for like Doom players and stuff like that. Now, obviously, this on its own can sound really good as you increase the volume and stuff. We've got it turned down because I like to blend all these in conjunction with the boost because I think combining it with the boost, you really get like that extra depth. Now, notice when I go to full clip, which I think is the best sounding voicing for more modern distortion type sounds, the volume drops quite a bit because the clipping diodes are kind of clipping that headroom. Now, you're getting more saturation and crunch, but obviously the volume is quieter. So that's part of the reason why I have the hot switch on there, because while blending the saturated distortion with the boost, if I wanted to have that sweet spot be a little closer. So usually what I'll do, because you don't want to max out the headroom of the EQ, it can sound kind of weird and distorted. So if you're cranking the volume a bunch, here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So notice that there's a little bit of background hum and hiss, especially once I activate the boost. Now, one of the things I was doing just now, and I'll explain it now that you've heard it, is that the boost goes below unity gain, but it has some EQ to it. So what I was doing was kind of tightening up the sound without necessarily compressing and overloading the main muff distortion as much. Gate control. So both tone and gate on some senders that are already out in circulation, they have there's two different value pots. It's more of that taper. So the range of where that knob is could be slightly different. I have been switching lately to using B100K pots. This is actually built with all A100K, so it's closer to what most of them that already are in circulation are. But what I've been doing is sometimes I'm using the B100K because what that does is that the range is closer to noon and it's a little easier to dial in the sweet spots, especially for the gate control. So on your pedal, the gate control settings could end up being different, but it's what you're listening for. And I'll kind of demonstrate that now. So a little bit of background hiss, right? Pretty much nothing. So now I'm going to play against it and try and find the sweet spot where it's not cutting off too much note or saturation, but it's brought the noise down. So this is the clean blend or the clean boost with the EQ to it. And I really like using this on all different instruments. On bass, it sounds good. On guitar, it sounds good. And it really just kind of brings out the depth and more complexity in the sounds. That's one of the reasons why I included it. But it also sounds great with your fuzzes and other pedals, especially as like kind of a post EQ to add some of that, like almost like a mastering sizzle or something. And that's why I included it on this pedal, because I figured that, okay, I want to boost the distortion and I want to give it a little extra, kind of almost like a mastering depth on it. So we've got our sound. Now, obviously, I like that. That's the like high gain, nasty distortion sound. Let's show the overdrive sound, which I think is really interesting. So, gonna switch to either no clip or half clip and run the gains low with the boost high, and I'll show you what that sounds like. This is what I think is like one of the secret settings of the Sender 5 is that you can get this overdrive tone that's really unique and interesting and boost it.